He must remember.
I can't wait for his contribution.
I'm taller and larger than he is. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this is an interesting debate today, talking about correcting certain another matter that needs to be corrected. And I spoke about it before, reminding them that there are three branches to government. That is the judiciary, the legislative, and the executive. And we cannot have a discriminatory system where the judiciary and executive receive certain benefits and the legislative receive none. So I would hope that you correct that soon so that the legislative would be on par, if not at least with certain benefits. And I'm certain that everyone would agree with that. Yes, sir. But Madam Speaker, I want to congratulate the young parliamentarians who spoke last week. They were outstanding, and I thought they were excellent. They made some excellent contribution, and I think everybody should review some of the contributions that they made because it can be utilized today. Madam Speaker, I'd like to begin by paying tribute to the late Daisy Esther Veronica Brister, Nee Gibson, who was laid to rest on Monday past. Esther Brister was the wife of the late Cadwell Brister, a unionist, who also served as a member in this honorable house. And I fondly remembered Esther very well because she was a personal friend of my mother. And of course, she would have assisted in my growing up. The country knew Esther as a businesswoman and as the owner of Peggy's Hat Shop there on Blue Hill Road. And Peggy's Hat Shop was a household name and was well known for its distinct and distinguished creation. Ms. Brister, quiet in her demeanor, was a tower of strength and, of course, a woman of integrity. She played her part in promoting gender, racial, and economic equality in our Bahamas. And I offer condolences to our children, Cleopatra, Christy, Greg, Marva, Kevin, Ron, and Ronnie Brister, as well as to her other family members and friends who mourn her passage and celebrate her life of love, service, and generosity. And I trust this house will join me in paying tribute to this woman of grace and a lady of dignity. May she rest in peace. Madam Speaker, the Bahamas is facing one of its most difficult periods since independence. We are still emerging from the emergency phase of the COVID-19 pandemic as a war in Europe continues to cause instability in global food and energy prices. There are record inflation levels not seen in 4 decades. Unemployment remains high. The Prime Minister and his government have heartlessly increased electricity costs on Bahamian homes and businesses. And Madam Speaker, if I have time, I think I would like to explain what plans we had to bring the cost of electricity down to 8.5 at max 9.5 cents per kilowatt hour. The Prime Minister has imposed the Davis breadbasket tax on foods and medicines Bahamians rely on. There's a crime crisis in New Providence, that may lead to a murder record. The New Day administration is attempting to force price controls on pharmacies, food store retailers, and wholesalers, threatening the availability of goods, medicines, and services across the country. I would only ask that they be very careful in terms of price control, because since time immemorial, 301 AD, by the Roman Emperor, price control was introduced, and it caused serious problems, shortages, black market activity, and cost shifting. And therefore, I would advise that they come to some agreement with the parties so as to avoid these effects, which can have devastating impact on our economy. Yesterday, the Bahamas Pharmaceutical Association advised its members throughout the country to temporarily close. The BPA did so, they said, because they were waiting for a response from the government to a proposal from the association as regards to price control measures. In a letter released on Monday, the BPA's president noted that they, I quote, complied with Minister Halkida's request to offer recommendations to achieve economic relief for the nation on October 21st, 2022. The letter went on to say, Madam Speaker, at the end of my address, I will table all the relevant documents to what I speak about. This document was sent as a response to a lack of consultation from the government with the pharmacy industry on the Price Control Regulation Amendment 2022. Our documents sent on October 27th, 2022, has not received a response to its contents, nor has our request for further discussion been acknowledged. Therefore, the Bahamas Pharmaceutical Association has made the decision to advise its membership that it is in their best interest for pharmacies within the Commonwealth of the Bahamas to close our doors temporarily commencing November 1st, 2022, end quote. Madam Speaker, the closure of private pharmacies across the country was a very serious matter. We will see how this matter continues to unfold. We are now witnessing yet another late again PLP government. Late in responding, I have records to back whatever I say. I'm not withdrawing anything. I have records to back everything I say, and I'm not withdrawing.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Fort Charlotte.
Madam Speaker, thank you. The honourable member has failed to disclose that the pharmacies to which he referred opened their doors to the Bahamian public yesterday. No.
Y'all know what point all this now?
It's a complete. You have to represent the facts.
Thank you, honourable member.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. We are now witnessing yet another late again PLP government. Late in responding to the Pharmaceutical Association, late in responding to the grocers, late in responding on BPL hedge for fuel costs to help keep electricity bills down, late in responding on blacklisting in the financial services industry. The government is late, reckless, and irresponsible. You want a point of order? We have a ceremonial prime minister who is more interested in traveling around the world than he is in taking care of the urgent needs of the Bahamian people. Rather than coordinating the business of government, he is busy coordinating his next trip, or some may say joyride. Last week,
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Fort Charlotte.
This is a point of order. And the point of order I wish to take members' attention to, and that is, which is well known to us, Rule 30. and sub-rule 17. And I read, Madam Speaker, this scandalous allegation of joyride. It's an imputation. It's an imputation of improper motive and a personal reflection. You said Prime Minister. You didn't say the honorable member for Cat Island. But certainly when you say Prime Minister, you used to be Prime Minister, but there's only one Prime Minister in this house. And no, it's an imputation that the work of state being carried out by the honorable member for Cat Island is not for the peace, order, and good government of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. How could you characterize all of the work of state? All of the work of state. Get up and say it. All of the work. I'm speaking to the speaker.
Members.
Can I speak to my speaker, our speaker? Madam Speaker, it is an improper imputation. It is offensive and abusive. Both 16 and 17 for the honorable member of Kalani. For the honorable member of Kalani.
Honorable members.
To characterize all of the work on behalf of the Bahamian state as a joyride.
I agree, honorable member.
I agree. I said something.
Thank you, honorable member. That will be stricken from the record as a joyride.
Joyride?
Madam Speaker.
Some of it or all of it?
All of the joyride or something?
So somewhat, all of it.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, last week, the PLP was busy trying to coordinate how they were going to respond to the many questions about their Bermuda trip. And while they're here, Madam Speaker, I would like for them to explain how is it that a PLP member of the Senate, could attend in Jamaica a PNP 84th annual conference where he spoke with paraphernalia. I would like to know, and the member in his opening address stated with a big PLP sign behind him and the PNP other paraphernalias on the side, an active member of the Senate. And he spoke about greetings. He brings message from the Prime Minister of the Bahamas. Madam Speaker, I would like to know who paid for such trip.
Yes.
Was that the beginning of small matters, just Jamaica, moving on to larger matters, Bermuda?
Caribbean
Who
talk.
paid for the trips?
It's a Caribbean
It was
talk.
unethical, and it demonstrated partisan interests,
Wow. Foreign.
which should not be done.
Wow.
You placed the Bahamas in a very difficult position.
Wow.
In the face, and if you want to know the member, it's Senator. Am I allowed to state the name, Madam Speaker?
No.
Okay, I can send you the videotape so that you can see him. Greetings from our Prime Minister.
Just do the last thing. You don't have to do the whole.
In the face of all the problems in the country, we have a member for Cat Island who is willing to abandon his post to go on trip to Egypt with plenty people at taxpayers' expenses. The Prime Minister.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Fort Charlotte.
Madam Speaker, we would expect from someone who's held the high office of Prime Minister not to trivialize the
Many
work
people-
of COP 37, because the work which is being done is vital to the national interest. Yeah. Madam Speaker, let me address he said it's a technical matter. When the Prime Minister of the UK, the President of the United States, the Prime Minister of Canada, the Prime Minister, the President of Nigeria. You have the president of South Africa, all attending, and the honorable member say, for technical officers, and that it's abandoning something that goes to the very life. Madam Speaker, as Minister of Works, I am charged to attend to damage and restoration work which occurred under the honorable member's watch from 2019. This is not trivial, and I invite the honorable member to treat this issue of climate change as a vital, important issue, as it is being treated by nations all over the world.
All over the world.
And how could you abandon if you are dealing with the matter which is at the very heart of the life of the country, the region, and the world?
Thank you, honorable member, and I do agree.
I mean,
Madam Speaker, the PLP is not only late again, but the leadership is gone again. Late again and gone again. Madam Speaker, the resolution we debate today to increase the minimum wage takes place in this broader context. The party the Bahamian people elected last year is failing spectacularly in their responsibility to properly lead our country. I support increasing the minimum wage. I always stand with working Bahamians. However, this increase is not enough to offset all the hurt being done by the bad PLP governance. Madam Speaker, it is increasingly clear to many Bahamians that the member for Cat Island is not up to carrying out the responsibilities. Perhaps he thought being Prime Minister was all about pomp, pageantry, escort, sirens. Perhaps he thought it was about traveling, being fawned over by rich and powerful foreigners at conferences. Perhaps, I don't know, perhaps he thought it was about the perks and prestige and pandering and being popular. Didn't realize how much work goes into this job and that you often have to make unpopular decisions in the best interest of the country. He was elected to be Prime Minister, not Mr. Popularity. Didn't realize that sound judgment is required to make difficult decisions. Perhaps the Prime Minister didn't realize it's a 24/7, 365 days a year. Madam Speaker, I remember going to our office on Sundays to ensure that my desk was cleared. So when people said their file is on my desk, I could say with confidence, it's not true. My desk is empty every Sunday to start over on Monday. It's not true. The failures of the Prime Minister are now causing real-world hardship for people. The Prime Minister, or if you want to say the member for Cat Island, has made BPL bills go up, honorable. The Prime Minister has made food prices go up. Listen, the Prime Minister has caused the crisis in our pharmacies and food stores. Now with this minimum wage increase, he's trying to save face and say he is doing something to help. The government is failing and the Bahamian people are being hurt as a result. The minimum wage increase does not offset all the harm the New Day administration is doing to our country. Madam Speaker, we are here today to increase the wages of low-income workers in our country. At the same time, we have a large number of undocumented people who do not abide by the employment and wage laws. They sometimes drive wages down by taking whatever is given to them off the books. Illegal immigration is out of control on numerous islands of our Commonwealth. One of the worst places is Abaco. In recent weeks, the two members of the governing side from Abaco have been quoted in the media expressing alarm over the immigration situation in that island. Perhaps their own government wouldn't listen to them, so they had to speak out in the press. In an October 25th, 2022 article in the Nassau Guardian headline,
Just a point of clarification.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Central and South Abaco.
It's a point of clarification. This is very misleading. To say this is something new. 35 years of F&M representation in Abaco has caused and progressed this to be the state we are today. I just want to lay that out there for the general public. This is no new matter. It's something that's been coming on. 35 years of F&M representation that has brought us to the plight that we are today in Abaco.
Thank you, honorable member. The chair recognizes the honorable member for North Abaco.
I also wish to clarify the assumption that perhaps the members of parliament for North Abaco was not being listened to as it relates to the matter pertaining to illegal migrants in Abaco.
Speak to your constituents. Tell them you spoke to the government.
You and Joe are a good man.
My prime minister, my leader,
Yes.
and my colleagues certainly is listening. We are far more concerned about who go in John Canoe than what is happening in Abaco.
Don't forget here.
What John Canoe got to do with immigration?
Madam Speaker.
The whip is on, eh? The whip is on.
Madam Speaker,
May proceed, Kalani.
may I get to serious business as opposed to John Canoe?
That's you. That's you. You said that.
In an October 25th, this is not the time for John Canoe. This is not the time for John Canoe. Madam Speaker, I think while you're talking about John Canoe, I think you should increase the price. We did. You kind of. We did. Take it back to what we had it.
We love being.
I didn't. COVID did. In an October 25th, 2022 article in Nassau Guardian headlined, I quote, "MP sounds alarm on illegal migrants." End quote.
Stop going on the phone and
The member for Central and South Abaco laid out the problem. He said the illegal population is near matching the Bahamian population on the island. He further went on to say, there's a significant number. I wouldn't say how many, but it is a significant number.
Yes.
It could possibly match the Bahamian populace in Abaco now. End quote.
Good man.
Madam Speaker, can you imagine what would happen if the member feels that the numbers are equal now? It's only a matter of time for that number surpass the indigent or Bahamian population. In an October 25th, 2022 article, the Tribune headlined, Abaco has vexing migrant issue. MP, the member for North Abaco, expressed his concern. He said, not only are the migrants here building illegal communities, occupying land illegally, working illegally, but more alarming, they are being facilitated and employed by Bahamians. He further went on to say, for the love of our country, we can't ask the government to fix a problem in the light and facilitate it in the dark. I hope and pray that we all do our part to correct this issue, end quote.
Listen to the MP.
My administration sought to address the shantytown issue once and for all. We were going to ensure that they were all cleared. Madam Speaker, just briefly, the mud, the sandbanks, and Pigeon P were cleared. The farm had a number of homes. We had ensured that there was one entrance to the farm. That entrance was being manned by a police and defense force. No one can enter with any type of heavy equipment or materials, and therefore difficult to build. There was also, on order, a mobile police station that was supposed to be placed on the farm. Anyone entering who were illegal would have been dealt with appropriately. Those who were legal would have been dealt with appropriately, regularized, etc. And they would have been encouraged to move into proper facilities that meet government standards. And they would have been given the benefit, like all of us, to apply for land and build their home. Madam Speaker, in addition to that, the plan was to go after Bahamians who may have been hiring individuals illegally and apply the full extent of the law. There were major, large generators, almost the size of BPL's generators. They had to be moved by crane or assisted to get there. Those were moved. It would be interesting for the government to find out where they are now. They were supposed to be at BPL for storage, but I hope they're still there or they've been moved somewhere else. But those individuals were supposed to have been dealt with. Another component of it, any Bahamian or anyone hiring an individual obtaining work permit would have had to ensure that they would have received proper education without putting additional stress on our educational system. And they would have had to ensure that they had proper health insurance. So again, they do not put additional strain on our already burdensome health facility. After Abaco, we were moving to Eleuthera and then Andres. But now I'm hearing that Exuma is growing slowly, and I ask you to watch it. But there was an injunction by the court. I think that injunction remains to this day. We cannot let them build sprawly illegal communities and stand idly by saying there is nothing we can do. We must continue to have a fair and efficient repatriation policy. Structures that violate our law need to be lawfully demolished and removed. Madam Speaker, I would remember when I was doing one of my first investments, I was building the wall, putting barriers. And I wanted to erect the wall 6 foot in height. Town planning came and said, the zoning regulations only allow it to go to 4 feet. I took the additional block down, confined by town planning regulation, because I would have not been able to proceed and open my facility. If I must abide by the law, so should everybody else. If you abide by the law, Madam Speaker, so should everybody else. It is not fair for you or any Bahamian in this society who works hard trying to save their money to buy a piece of property, and God knows you can't buy in the West anymore. If you don't have $200,000, you can't come in the West anymore. It's so expensive. But you work extremely hard to buy a property for your children. And another person just come and take it free of charge and build while you are abiding by the law. It has to be stopped, be it by you or be it by us, but it has to be stopped.
Yes, yes.
Madam Speaker, I know you're doing that. Madam Speaker, relax. You have your time. You
Relax, you'll get a chance. Relax. Let him finish. Relax.
You get a chance tomorrow. Don't be late.
You
were not
the chair
recognized.
recognizes the
I stopped because
Watch out.
the clock was running in.
The honorable member for Kalani began a process of building a subdivision, supposedly for young professional Bahamians. I had assumed, Madam Speaker, I had assumed that the honorable member would have first acquired the ownership of the property. Upon being appointed, property owners within the area that the honorable member had announced as a new subdivision, their property was being taken without any legal process, Madam Speaker. In other words, what's the difference between that and what is happening in all of these irregular buildings? This honorable member, as Prime Minister, did the very same thing. Illegal. And Madam Speaker, he was the Minister of Land. All he had to do was publish the acquisition, and he failed to do it.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Marcus.
Minister of Works,
Right.
who came to this house after Pinecrest had started in order for us to deal with a land transaction for Pinecrest. No environmental impact assessment, no consultation with residents. We didn't see the hydrology study they claimed they had, and they didn't have subdivision and planning approval. This is the Minister of Works who's responsible for all of those things. You should not get up and talk about those things. You haven't laid the documents yet in the House. You haven't laid them yet. You haven't laid them yet.
The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Fort Charlotte.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I am delighted to report to this honorable House that I met with Building Control, most unparliamentary, and I'm not required to lay anything in the normal course of the conduct of the Ministry of Works. I met with Building Control. The permits had been given. I met with the structures. I also met with the town planning. And Madam Speaker, I am satisfied that the processes within the Ministry of Works, with respect to subdivision approval, with respect to building control, and also, Madam Speaker, I personally met with them in the office and I had them carry me through. And before the occupancy certificate was issued, an inspector from building control went to the subdivision, and before the keys were given, in other words, keys given to Bahamians before of the first year of this administration. How many keys did you give out? And they were inspected. In fact, they were inspected. And therefore, Madam Speaker, I am really quite delighted to inform. Yes, because it is a major accomplishment, and it was done. It was done, unlike Prospect Ridge. It was the government owned the land. And the processes under building control, town planning, under the Subdivision Act, as well as under the provisions of building control. And I'm making that representation, Madam Speaker. It's a representation I made because I did the due diligence when the allegations were made in Parliament, and therefore, as Minister of Works, the processes were followed.
Thank you, Honourable Member.
Describe what I've heard. You know, I don't know. I'm here on Earth, and obviously someone was in space. But Madam Speaker, we had debated this over and over, and it's unfortunate that I don't have that file with me. But upon my return, Madam Speaker, I would be more than happy to table a copy of the file to show where the land was originally owned by Water and Sewage and subsequently transferred to government. All of that records I have. So it's very difficult for me to sit down and listen to none sense.
On a point of order.
The chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Fort Charles.
Member publish a map. On the map, he said this is the area comprising this subdivision.
I'm watching that property Ezekiel.
I received a letter, and these are private people, so I won't call their name. I received a letter, Madam Speaker.
I received that letter too.
I received a letter. I received a letter. I received a letter, Madam Speaker.
8 acres is not included.
And Madam Speaker, and I took this is these are Bahamian citizens, landowners, and not only did I receive the letter, but I made inquiries because the people were concerned. They see their land listed in this proposed subdivision. Nobody had spoken to them. They had seen no notice of acquisition. So I asked the Cabinet Office, and I said, was there an acquisition of these people's land? They're not water and sewage land, Madam Speaker. Private citizens' land. And I was reliably informed by the Office of the Prime Minister, responsible for land, that there had not been any acquisition. That had not been any acquisition.
Why did you do an EIA
Thank-
Pine Crest?
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Kalani.
Today, but the member is talking about land basically adjoining Sanford Drive, and the 1.8 acres that the members speak about is not included, okay? Madam Speaker, we cannot let them build sprawling illegal activity communities and stand idly by saying there is nothing we can do. We must continue to have a fair and efficient repatriation policy. Structures that violate the law need to be lawfully demolished and removed. In October 28, 2022 article on the Eyewitness News website headlined, Spanish Wells Committee fights Shantytown expansion with building ban, end quote. I read of threats against our people. What is the New Day administration doing to address this? Bahamians are tired of shantytowns. Bahamians want all undocumented migrants to be swiftly sent back to their respective countries. Madam Speaker, I have said several times in this place that for the issues of the economy, wages and illegal migration to be addressed, we need a serious leader who is willing to do the hard work that is required and difficult decisions that has to be made. Some people, you may walk in, putting it mildly in Bahamian terminology, you may walk on individuals' toes, but sometimes corns may have to be hurt. Sadly, we have a late again, gone again government. Instead of getting a handle on the problems facing the country, the member is going on yet another taxpayer-funded trip with traveling companions. I am sure the Bahamian people will, while he's abroad, the Bahamian people will be here dealing with high gas and food prices and electricity. Our people will be dealing with an out-of-control crime situation, while the Bahamian people are struggling. Their prime minister and his traveling friends will be living the good life with the world's rich and famous. The Bahamas has never had a leader who has so often been absent from his office. And Madam Speaker, a Nassau Guardian editorial from this past Monday, October 31st, sums up the disastrous direction this government is taking. The editorial stated, quote, "In ordinary life, when you take something that does not belong to you and convert it to your own use without the permission of the owner, all and sundry know what that is called. We are disappointed that the Prime Minister still neglects to acknowledge that he was wrong to authorize the payment of in the first place for the Bermuda trip." It further went on, "We remain dissatisfied that he has yet to account for the full restitution of funds to the Treasury. This should not be a difficult exercise. Hotel bills and sums paid for per diem expenses, transportation, and for lavish meals ought to be readily available." The editorial also stated, the government imposed 10% value-added tax on all breadbasket items and medications. Now, it has announced the expansion of price controls with a list of 38 categories of price-controlled basket items, covering hundreds of things in an effort to reduce the price that their imposition of VAT increased. Mr. Speaker, I am talking about the Brave Davis bread basket tax. The article went on. That was not a bad article. The article went on. This is another example of the government's knee-jerk policies that continue to cost the public dearly. Finally, the failure of the government to take advice offered upon its coming to office to pay the premium for unhedged portions of Bahamas Power and Light BPL fuel requirements, some 20% for the remainder of 2022, 50% 2023, 75% 2024, has resulted in BPL having to purchase fuel at high market rates. It further went on, this failure resulted in the government subsidizing BPL's fuel expenses to the tune of millions of dollars plus a debt to Shell of some 90 million. Billings to consumers are now being increased to repay the millions of dollars of subsidies plus the monies owed to Shell. The details of the hedge strategy were set out in the letter to Minister of Works Alfred Sayers from the head of BPL in October 2021. Incredibly, the minister claims he never saw the 6-page letter. And the Prime Minister's contention that I am reading an article and I adopt it, I will sign it. I will sign it. Okay? So, and the Prime Minister's contention.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Fort Charlotte.
Point of order. What is the point of order? The point of order is that on that occasion, because a representation is being made, whether it's reported or not, I am present. No. In answer to the question of Marco City, before he disclosed or he laid it on the table, these were my words. I did receive information. However, I did not receive any recommendations, options was the word I used. I did not receive any recommendations from BPL, and that is the board which was appointed by you. And that board ran BPL until the 22nd of November, 2021. The new board was appointed on that shortly thereafter. And most importantly, because the honorable member from Marco City, to my recollection, had said, well, there should have been certain action by the minister. There was no recommendation to this honorable minister, right, for any ministerial intervention. The hedge is an internal operational aspect of BPL. I have no hedging committee in the Ministry of Works, and no proposal was put to me, Madam Speaker, that required preparation of a cabinet paper, that required action by this minister. And I maintain that. I have seen the letter, and the letter makes no proposal. And I had, whether formal or informal, no proposals were put to me. And I maintain that from the time I was appointed to this very same day.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The chair recognizes the
member
Honorable
for
Marco
Kalani
City.
is going to continue, but I would like to address the matter once he is through, so that I don't interrupt the presentation, Madam Speaker.
The chair recognizes the
Madam
Honorable member for Kalani.
As former Prime Minister, I can say with confidence that a cabinet paper was prepared. Whether the members saw it, I cannot say. Members may have seen it and therefore did not understand the ramification. I cannot say. Whether it was sent to them, I cannot say. What I can also say, Madam Speaker, and I was supposed to table the communication, the email to you last week, and unfortunately I don't. A letter was written by Whitney Hasty to the chairman, which pointed out that we had negotiated an 11.5 kilowatt cents per kilowatt hour hedging, which would have been in effect until December 2024.
That was tabled already.
You table it? So, Madam Speaker, I can say, when you said, how is this inflation, Brave Davis's inflation? The electricity is yours.
Mm-hmm.
The breadbasket item is yours.
Yes, yes, yes.
The EU problem is yours.
Yes, yes,
It's yours.
yes.
All right?
All of them.
The global inflation, but you cost an additional 10% inflation on the poor.
Yes.
You cost an additional hundreds of thousands of dollars inflation on the people's electricity bill. As a result of that, you cost the cost of doing business higher. That is independent of the inflation. It is your inflation. It is your inflation. But we didn't bring on an inflation on top of the world's inflation. We have a double dose. The first dose is as a result of the world. The second dose is your inflation. Madam Speaker,
25% more.
I want to finish.
Minimum wage, 25%.
I quote again, continuing the article. And the Prime Minister contention that advice on BPL's fuel charge hedge discussed with the Financial Secretary and the government sector official in the Ministry of Finance, which he heeds, did not come to his attention is alarming. It further went on, we shudder to think of what else the Prime Minister may not know. Madam Speaker, this is a lost government with mounting crisis and still unable and unwilling or incapable of confronting the challenges which are causing great difficulties for the Bahamian people. And the other inflation you'd cause, I hope you don't go down that road. I hope you listen to the pharmacist for the pharmacists and the grocers, and don't go down that road, because you're going to throw us in an inflation that you've never seen before. You're going to create a black market. And who's running the black market today? The illegals.
Honorable member,
So you would increase.
stop the clock.
Only 1 minute was that. 1 minute.
I could get through in 1 minute.
It was more than 1.
No, man, I could always wrap up.
You'll reset the time, or you might. Okay. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Kalani.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy. Mr. Deputy, I only want to conclude by saying we already have a global inflation, and we are topping that is a PLP's inflation caused by fuel increase, caused by 10% charge to the poor people. And Mr. Deputy, I hope that they would not introduce an even worse inflation by not listening to the grocers and the pharmacists and going all out on price control. I asked them to review the history from 301 AD by the emperor at that particular time and come straight up to 2022 and see what you will do. For God's sake, man, don't put us in another inflation. Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy.
Thank you, honorable member. As many? Yeah. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Marco City.
Yes,
No, the Roman emperor 2,301.
no, I'm just a point of order. Just a point of order.
He put it already.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy. Mr. Deputy, I would not belabor this point, and I trust this is not a matter I'm going to have to address again anytime soon. I was of concern. I had.
About the amount of time Mr. Sayers takes in the House.
Is he taking this floor now to deliver a speech? There's no question he has to respond to in a response of an exchange between the member for Kalani and the member for Fort Charlotte.
Noted.
Continue.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy.
Yeah.
Mr. Deputy, the rules of the House provides for any member, if a statement is being
just get
okay,
go
good.
ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy. The member for Fort Charlotte continues to make the identical point, which I had hoped he would not continue to make, indicating that no recommendations came to him with respect to the BPL matter.
Was the substantive speaker last.
There's,
And the member for Kalani accepted what the member for Fort Charlotte said reference to the same matter he wishes to raise.
well, that is actually.
The member accepted. That was the substantive speaker.
Listen,
This member is not.
Mr. Deputy. Mr. Deputy. Mr. Deputy, two things.
1 minute.
Speak to the issue.
Sorry, Mr. Deputy. It's not an abuse.
It's an abuse of the rules.
Mr. Deputy. Two things about
Can you
what the member
wrap
just
up
said.
quickly,
First of all, the member for Kalani never said what he asserted. He never said he accepted. He said he could not say. Right? I'm doing my best to
Listen,
be patient.
but hold on. But 1 second.
I'm
1
doing my
second.
best to be
Yeah,
patient.
I gave you the floor, but you still trying to explain to him. No, listen. I'm telling you to talk.
Answer, he continues to interrupt.
No, but you speak to me. Yeah.
Mr. Deputy. I laid a document that clearly indicates the entire structure of the program with recommendations to the minister and to the financial secretary, Mr. Deputy. The letter is here that does so. It is one of several documents that make very clear recommendation. So I'm going to take my seat, but I would ask Mr. Deputy that the member for Fort Charlotte should cease and desist from continuing this line of argument that he did not receive recommendations. There are multiple ways in which that recommendation was made available to the member.
Thank you, Omar. The chair recognizes.
You explain to me, Mr. Deputy, how is that a point of order? And further, Mr. Deputy, the member for Kalani, the sitting prime minister at the time, spoke to the issue, raised all that happened, all the transactions that took place, but said, in a gentleman way, he made it very clear that he could not say. And so therefore he's accepting that the member for Fort Charlotte could be correct in stating that he did not receive. And that is what ought to be accepted, Mr. Deputy. It should not be allowed that members come after the fact when they can, when they're presenting. That's not the rules of the House, Mr. Deputy.
Thank you, Honorable Member.
It's an abuse of the rules of the House.
As many? The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Pinewood.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy.